It's time to take off your clothes, enjoy clothes-free living, and join us for Naked, Nudists, and Naturists.
Welcome to Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, the show that celebrates clothes-free living for all. I'm your host, Frank Stone.
And I'm your correspondent, Lisa Monroe, and I'll be reporting on all things within the naturist community. So it's time to get naked and join us.
And enjoy clothes-free living on Naked, Nudists, and Naturists. Well, greetings and welcome into Naked, Nudists, and Naturists, episode 105 today. Really glad that you are with us. We've missed you all week. Thank you for coming back. Clothes-free living together for the next hour and for the right reasons. Everything is ready to go. The pool, the hot tub, the food, the drinks, the suntan lotion, you name it, it's ready to go. The cigar bar, of course, towels and chairs. But we do have to dive in rather quickly today. On today's show, part one of my interview with Chris. He's the founder and owner of Indiana Naturists, a non-landed nudist club. And of course, Lisa Monroe will be here. You hear the music, so let's dive in right now. I hear the music. It could be, it is. The completely over-the-top, fully clothes-free, fully smiling, our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. And here she is, the one and only, the completely over-the-top, fully clothes-free, and fully smiling, our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Good morning, Lisa. How are you today?
I'm doing really well today, except, there's no sunshine. It's cloudy here today, and I'm not happy at all.
Well,
we should have sun.
It's coming. Just wait an hour or so, and it'll come back around. How's that sound?
Good. I always hate when the sun leaves. I'm afraid it won't come back.
Well, it didn't technically leave, right? It's just being covered by clouds.
This is true. Yeah. It's just being covered by clouds. The scientist in me knows that, but the sun worshiper in me does not.
That's right. So how's your week been? Lots of naked activities, I hope, even if just in the home, or how's your week been?
Yeah, mostly because I've had a lot of work to do, and some of it for a certain podcast we know.
Oh, yeah.
I have been sequestered doing some things, but yeah, it's been a fun week. And, naked is naked. If you can do it at home, it's just as good.
Mm-hmm. Now, was the clearing of your throat a moment ago because you're not feeling well, or was that for my benefit, all the work you're doing on the show?
I think it might be for your benefit, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's funny because it's beyond the funny part, but we still get questions. I would say every week we get 1 or 10. How do you guys do this? How do you keep coming with a brand new show every week? And the trade secrets are this. And maybe we should write a book about this.
Maybe we should.
Be about a half a page long, and that would include the credits and our names and everything else. We work our rear ends off, and we don't make, nor do we accept excuses, period, end of story. Now, there are more steps that go into it as far as planning and how we put things together, but that goes under the headings of we work our backsides off, and we make and accept no excuses. You agree with that?
I certainly do. And It's the only way to go. I mean, there's a lot to do. And we have other things in our lives, too, we have to do. Oh, yes. So you learn how to balance it. And, if you're going to get ahead in this world, you can't be afraid of working 24/7. I've done it most of my life in whatever position I had. So, you just have to keep at it and do what you need to do.
Yep. So those are the two secrets that I don't really think we can take credit for developing those. I'm thinking they've been present since the beginning of time, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe we are onto something. Maybe we should publish that book and even make a movie. We can get Tim Chismar to make a naked movie about how we put shows together. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Tim would jump on that in a heartbeat. So.
Oh, and he could write the script. He writes movie scripts as well. So Tim, we'll be calling you soon.
Yes. Okay. Oh, that's going to be an Oscar winner, I'm certain.
Well, I'm thinking what Brad Pitt for me. Maybe Robert Redford, even though he's older, but he's still a good-looking guy. Got to be somebody good-looking for the male lead. I'm thinking. What is your opinion?
Well,
be careful how you answer this. But go ahead.
I was going to say, why not use Frank Stone? I mean, he's it's okay. That'll work. Trust me.
Well, who would play your part?
Oh goodness, I have no idea.
And it could be anybody living or is already deceased, but if we could bring somebody back, and her heyday, or somebody, present day, who would play the lead of Lisa Monroe?
Good heavens, that's an interesting, because I never think of things like that about myself. So
Well,
it's
right,
like,
yeah.
well, darn. I don't know. Someone I loved as when she was younger and a comedian is Goldie Hawn. So I would think
Oh,
maybe Goldie Hawn. She's
okay.
bright and cheerful. So
Now, people are going to immediately assume you must be, blonde, but that's not
yeah.
the case.
No, no, no,
Okay.
no, no, no. It is definitely brunette.
All right. So Goldie Hawn and Brad Pitt, or Goldie Hawn and Robert Redford? What should we do here?
I think Brad. Although I don't know. The Robert Redford's pretty good. Yeah, let's go with Redford.
Okay. All right. So we have our roles. We have our script writer. We have our movie producer. Tim will call you after the show. We have this all planned out, baby. Just get ready
Yes.
to make things happen. Of course, he's in the middle of making, I think, 3 movies right now.
Yeah.
So we might have to wait on the waiting list, but we'll get there. All about working our butts off and no excuses. I think we can make a 2-hour movie out of that. How about
I
that?
think we can too. We made
Okay.
we made a rather long 100th episode. I think we can probably pull that off.
That's true. All
Oh,
right. Well, let's get
goodness.
to it here. We're being silly.
Yes.
We have a Patreon page. We used to do give up paid work to do the show for free. We still give up that paid work, but your generosity through Patreon has helped meet expenses here. We appreciate that very much. And on each show, we try to thank and honor 2 of our PPPs, paying Patreon peeps. Lisa Monroe, who are we thanking and honoring today?
This week we have Jonathan and we have Bill. And welcome aboard to both of you. We're glad to have you. And, just hope you enjoy being a PPP along with us.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And thank you very much, Bill. We appreciate both of you. We appreciate each of you. And we appreciate everybody who gives to the show to help us make expenses around here. We'll never make up what we gave up to do the show, but that's on us. And we don't want to make people feel guilty. But the more you support us, the better off we are here. So thank you very much. How about merchandise, Lisa? What's going on there? Any updates?
Well, it's going, and that's pretty cool. I'm really happy that the clothes free living for all of the right reasons merch line has done really well. I'm very, very pleased with that. And coffee cups are flying out the door, and still getting beach towels, and I had a couple of t-shirts this past week. So yeah, it's moving and grooving, and I'm really happy. I hope everybody's enjoying what they're getting.
All right. And you kept your promise. I ordered a 15-ounce coffee mug, Naked Nudists and Naturists. And here it is. I'm drinking out of it right now, as you can plainly see across the table. And you have yours too.
Yes, I do, right here.
So we are pumping it down, and it looks great, tastes great. It's the best coffee I've ever had when I have it out of a Naked Nudist and Naturist coffee mug, or an NNN coffee mug, or a Clothes Free Living for All the Right Reasons mug.
Yep. That's the best way to have coffee: in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, whatever.
That's right. 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
You wake up to use the restroom. You know what? I better go to the kitchen and get some coffee out of a Naked Nudist and Naturist mug.
Exactly.
Doesn't sound like normal behavior, but whoever said we're normal?
Well, no, normal is not fun.
That's right. Okay. Well, we want to talk a little bit about last week's show, episode 104. You and I did something we've never done before. No guest at all, just the 2 of us for the full hour. First of all, your thoughts on that and any feedback that you've gotten, and then I'll share some as well.
Well, it was an unusual thing for us because, but then we don't have trouble talking. So it came out a lot better from my standpoint than I was expecting. I think from what I'm hearing from people, they really enjoyed it. And, I had someone say, oh, wait, we need more of these. So I think we'll probably do more, as you've already alluded to the fact that you've already scheduled them.
We have
before you told me, no.
Yeah, well, we've scheduled more. We could always take them off if 104 didn't work, but it worked really well.
Yeah, it did.
And I looked at the chart again. We'll have one coming up in July. We'll have one in August, September, not October, but then one in November and 1 or 2 in December. So we'll keep people apprised of all that. And the feedback I got is basically the same. A number of people I won't give the number, partially because I didn't fully get a good count, but enough that it made a difference around here.
Mhm.
So that's the part of the show they enjoy the most, is this part right here, the banter back and forth between the two of us. And people have asked, how'd you guys meet? And they ask other questions, which I won't put out there for public
Mhm.
consumption. You just want to know what the heck is going on with us.
Yeah.
But for the most part, not for the most part, 100%, the feedback we got, very positive. So we will keep doing this down the road as well. Next episode sometime in July. And anything else you want to throw out there on
Well,
that?
I was just going to say the one thing that I like about this format with just us is that it allowed us to highlight a couple of our listeners who wrote music and wrote really nice music. And so, with the structure of the show with a guest and the things we need to do, it's not always easy to add those extra little additions. And so, someone has poetry or someone has something along those lines, or somebody else is writing music, whatever, at least it gives us a chance to show off who's listening to the show and give them some credit for the things that they do.
Yeah. Looking forward to more music from Rick Dorsiak.
Yes.
He has written a third tune, so we'll get that on
Oh,
the show.
yay.
Yeah.
Good.
And Vlad has some other songs out there. So, and if anybody else has a song out there about naturism, send it in. We'll be glad to play it. Or if you have poetry or a reading, anything at all, send it in, and we'll be glad to use it. You good to go on to the next topic?
I certainly am.
All right. So we appreciate all your very positive feedback. We have an email from one of our listeners. We've read his emails before. In fact, I think we've read his poetry before. Armando, he lives in Florida. He is a gentleman who is a full-fledged nudist, 25/8. His wife is the opposite, fully clothed, 25/8. So there's some struggles there. And the only time he can enjoy basically being nude is when he goes out on his boat, without her. And that brings issues along with it, too. But he sent us an email. And if you don't mind, could you go ahead and read the first paragraph?
I'll be glad to. He writes, I am so honored to be included in your 100th episode. You did an amazing job with your editing. I didn't sound nearly as nervous as I was. It couldn't have happened at a better time. I needed the encouragement, and it was so helpful. Jennifer, I know you're not directly involved, but with Frank and Lisa complimenting you so often, we know you are important to the success of the show. Please do an interview with Frank. Well, we try. We do try.
Yeah.
She's pretty adamant not to do it, but who knows? One of these days, maybe we'll be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say, it's fascinating that you were, to Jennifer, it says, you're fascinating that you were raised as a nudist. Those of us who struggle with acceptance from friends and family find that amazing.
Well, this is probably a good time to let the cat out of the bag here regarding our infamous Jennifer around here. She's not here right now, so we could basically say whatever we want.
Yes.
And she won't know it till she hears the show. And so say, hey, sorry, Jennifer, it's too late. The show's already out there. But I did interview her for episode 100. People were probably wondering, every show's in exactly an hour. But why was 100 3 hours and 49 minutes? Why wasn't it 4 hours? Well, guess where the other 11 minutes ended up? On the cutting room floor. We did an interview. I actually coaxed her into the studio. We did the interview. And then a couple of days before the show hit, she said, could you take my interview out? Had to do with her parents wanting to notify people. I thought, well, no, we can't because, and then long story short, we took it out. So maybe one of these days we'll get her back in. The only problem, though, Lisa, let me ask you this, and we haven't discussed this ahead of time, which is kind of how I like to do things because then it's really genuine and organic, and you have a look of surprise and shock on your face. If I bring Jennifer in to talk about whatever, that takes time away from you. Are you okay with that? Or are we going to have a cat fight in the background?
Now, wait a minute. Just wait a minute. Since when did I ever behave like that? And neither does she. So, no, we are very supportive of each other. And I'd love to see her highlighted if she's willing to do it. But, it's up to her. If she doesn't want to, she doesn't want to, and we're not going to force her. But no cat fights, I promise.
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd put that out there for our listeners. Just so you know, we get along here. So you're okay if she takes some of your time on occasion.
I'm certainly fine if she does that.
If she takes half of your time, are you okay with that?
All right, let's just not get carried away here.
If
Okay.
if she totally replaces you, or I just want to know how far we can go with this.
Well, if you want to replace me with her, then you go right ahead. Let's see how that goes over.
Yeah.
No.
And you'll have nothing to say about it. You say, "Oh, I understand, Frank. No problem whatsoever." That's how you normally react, right?
Yeah, but remember all that website work and all that merchandise work.
So if we replaced you with Jennifer full time, you would no longer do the website work?
Well, what would be the point? I'm not involved.
Well, you'd be helping us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm so magnanimous. Of course I would. Of course I would.
All right, let's put that idea to bed. It's not going to happen. Just being silly again. Let me continue on with Armando's email. Said, and this is kind of serious here. He's very serious about this. Frank, if anyone else who is a single married nudist writes in, please share my email with them. I would love to have a pen pal so I don't feel so isolated out here. And we have a lot of people who fall into this category. We get, I'll say, cards and letters all the time. It's emails and DMs now. But so if you want to communicate with Armando, send us an email and then we'll put you in touch with him. I don't want to put his email address out there for the whole world.
No way.
And he does request you not send links or photos because he won't open them and he will actually delete those before he even opens your message. So he wants some legitimate people. He doesn't want, hey, baby, let's hang out together and have a good time. That's not what he's into at all. Just isolation. He's married to a woman who I guess is a terrific woman. She just doesn't support the clothes-free thing. And a lot of guys are in that situation, probably some women too. If you want to communicate with Armando, send us an email at nakedforevermore@gmail.com. We'll get you in touch with him. And then he goes on, Frank, thank you again and keep up the good work. I hope you understand what an impact you have on us listeners. And that sentence right there is why we continue to do this show. I hope you understand what an impact you have on us listeners.
That kind of sends chills down my spine because it's just, we started this because we love naturism. We didn't really, I don't think, understand the impact that a show like this could have on people. And so it's just thrilling to know that people are embracing this and it's helping people.
Yeah, very much so. And Lisa, there's a little more of Armando's email, if you don't mind finishing that up.
I don't. He says, Lisa, I can't wait to see the new merchandise with the clothes free for all the right reasons on them. I want a shirt and hat that say Naked Nudist and Naturist. I will make the purchase as soon as they are available. Well, the good news is, Armando, they are available. So go to nakednudistandnaturist.com, click on the shop, and they'll be right there. And you can pick a color. Because the logos has to be different for the light and dark. There's 2 different sets. So if you want a dark shirt, go to that one. If you want a light shirt, go to the other. And, go for it.
All right. Now, he sent this email in maybe a month ago or so. So it's before the merchandise was available.
Right. Exactly.
The point that it's not like he sent it yesterday. It's the merchandise is out there, but his email's on the old side. So again, you want to communicate with Armando. You're in that same situation. You're a guy. You're married. The wife says, "Get your clothes on, pal, or I'm out of here." But you still want to be clothes free. You want to have somebody to talk to. Armando's willing to do that. Okay, let's move on. Now, today is June 28th. Obviously, in just a few days, we'll be in the month of July, and that's a big time of the year in the USA, really the Northern Hemisphere in general, for summer recreation. And we have, for the American Association for Nude Recreation, Nude Recreation Week. Lisa, if you don't mind reading the blurb that we took from their website.
Okay, Nude Recreation Week is the high point of the summer nudist season. Most all AANR nudist resorts have a whole week of planned activities, including National Skinny Dip Day on Saturday, July 12th. This is the week to call your favorite nudist resort and make reservations for accommodations or a campsite.
Absolutely. And they mentioned National Skinny Dipping Day, and that is July 12th, Saturday, July 12th. This is the silliest and funniest event of the nudist year, and a great reason to visit your favorite nudist resort and jump in the pool. And that's a direct quote taken from the ANR website. So, see, I have a very strict rule around here. They say Nude Recreation Week, get outside and be naked, starting July 7th through Sunday, July 13th. But I have a strict rule about being naked, and that is I'm only clothes free on days of the week that end with the letter Y, and there are no exceptions. I will not make an exception for that. It doesn't end in the letter Y, clothes on, which means I never have clothes on. Does that work for you?
It certainly does, and your dedication is just impressive. I mean, just to the cause, and we'll send forth naturism to the world. But yes, and even if you have to get dressed and go out, part of your day needs to be in the state where you get this right state of mind, and that is when you don't have clothes on. So
that's right.
Absolutely. So every day, I agree with that.
Every day is Nude Recreation Week around here. That is for darn sure. But so again, through the American Association for Nude Recreation Week, July 7th through July 13, and National Skinny Dipping Day on Saturday, July 12th. Get your clothes off, or as Rick Dorsiak, apparently our third host, even though he doesn't know it yet. It's time to get your clothes off and get your nude on. Is that what he says?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that works for us.
Get your clothes off and get your nude on.
There you go. All right, the last thing we wanted to do is we have a gentleman who writes in quite a bit, shares information with us. Consultant Vlad is what he goes by on Twitter. Yes, we still call it Twitter. And he sent in a quick story called No Ordinary Gardener. I'll read the first very short paragraph, and then I'll turn it over to you to finish up. The symmetry between the first Adam and the last Adam, which is Jesus, offers a profound theological parallel. And if you take it from there.
The Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve fell, mirrors the garden where Jesus was buried and resurrected, signaling restoration. Eve, the wife of Adam, finds her counterpart in Mary, who symbolizes the bride of Christ, the church. 2 cherubim guarded the way to the tree of life after the fall, while 2 angels appeared at Jesus' tomb, heralding the return to Eden. The fall of humanity through Adam contrasts with the restoration through Christ. Before the fall, Adam was naked and unashamed, whereas after his resurrection, Jesus' burial wrappings were left behind, raising the question, was he naked once more, symbolizing a return to innocence?
Yeah, very well said. And that's glossed over in the Bible, although it's there in black and white. Jesus was obviously killed, buried in a tomb. 3 days later, he comes walking out. His clothes were left behind, neatly folded. He walked out, but they don't tell you he walked out clothes-free while listening to Frank and Lisa. They don't tell you that part. They just say, his clothes were left behind and he walked out. And the gardeners back in those days worked in the nude, so they wouldn't rip their clothing. And he was passing through town, and some people saw him. Oh, he must be one of the gardeners. No big deal. Acknowledging that he was naked, because gardeners work naked. There's a naked guy. He must be the gardener. No harm, no foul, and everybody accepted it as normal. And that is how we were born. Every human being is born with no clothes on. Jesus came out of the tomb, no clothes on, being born again, which is why I forgot who said on this show, when you're born again, the baptism should be done while you're in the nude, because that's how you were born the first time. Why would you have clothes on the second time?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we appreciate those words of wisdom from Consultant Vlad. You can find him on Twitter, and he always gives us food for thought, doesn't he?
He certainly does. It's quite a philosophical approach that he has to everything, from naturism to everything else he does. So it's for very, very thought-provoking.
Yeah. Okay, Lisa Monroe, with that, we will duck off. And believe it or not, in just a few days, as we mentioned a couple minutes ago, it will be July. How did we get here so quickly?
I have no idea. The time just flies. It must be that we never raise our head from working on the show. So one day flows into the other, I guess. But, or it may be that we're having so much fun doing this show that we use the passage of time means nothing. So one or the other, I guess, maybe both.
They both work. Either one works. We just enjoy life and enjoy being clothes free, enjoy doing this show. And we go back to that one comment from our own, though. I hope you understand what an impact you have on us listeners. That's huge for us. And just a simple one sentence propels us for 10 more shows without even thinking about it, right?
It certainly does. And, it's amazing to me that people respond so well. And it's exciting, too, in a way that because, they're seeing something that now in their lives that they wanted to see. And it really doesn't have anything to do with us. It's what they suddenly have made themselves be part of. And so it's, we might have been a slight catalyst for this, but they have to make it happen for themselves.
All right. Well said. We'll see you at the end of the show. And until then, go out there and have a great clothes-free half hour or so. We'll see you in a little bit.
Okay. I'll talk to you guys in a few.
Sounds good. The very terrific Lisa Monroe does it all around here, and we appreciate her very much. And we'll hear from her again near the end of the show. As a reminder, we are the official podcast for the American Association for Nude Recreation. Are you a member? If so, great. If not, you can join today. Go to AANR.com, follow the navigation to membership, and within moments, you will be a member of the American Association for Nude Recreation. Well, you're listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 105 today. Thank you for being with us. And now let's get to part one of my interview with Chris, the founder and owner of Indiana Naturists, a non-landed nudist club. We are headed to the state of Indiana today. We're going to talk to the gentleman who is the founder and the leader of the Indiana Naturists. It's basically a private nudist travel club. They don't have a particular building. They don't have a resort. They rotate from home to home. They are affiliated with the American Association for Nude Recreation. So we'll talk all about it. What is a private naturist club? And let's welcome to the show from Indiana, the Indiana Naturist, Chris Brown. Good morning, Chris. How are you today, sir?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you bet. Glad to have you along. And we talked a little before we started recording. Plus, I believe it's on your website. You've been going about 15 years now, right?
Yeah, we're actually getting ready to celebrate 15 years this summer.
Wow, that's terrific. Just out of curiosity now, what was the impetus for starting this group? Are there not enough what they call landed clubs in Indiana? Or is it just something you wanted to do, or how did it come to be?
I consider myself a naturist pretty much since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. It was really hard for my parents to keep clothes on me, when I was growing up. Luckily, we lived out in the middle of the cornfields in Iowa, so I wasn't getting them in any kind of trouble. But
yeah.
I didn't really understand that social nudism was a thing. I just thought, this is something I enjoyed privately, throughout my years. I met a couple of people at a job that I had that were social nudists, and they were talking about going on a trip to Sunshower. It really piqued my curiosity. I really thought that I was the only one that enjoyed being nude in my house.
Yeah.
Never really thought about doing it with others. Needless to say, I joined along, had the time of my life. Probably within 20 minutes, I was completely addicted to social nudism, and I just wanted to find a way to connect with other nudists. I didn't really expect it to grow like it did. I just figured we'd get 5 or 6 people that enjoyed doing this kind of thing, and it just kept growing and growing and growing, and here we are. We're roughly 75 members or so, and it's going strong 15 years later.
Wow, that's very good. Well, what, in your mind, this is kind of a deep question. We're diving in full bore here, Chris Brown, right away. Why save the heavy stuff for later? Let's just dive in right now.
Okay.
We've discovered over these last 2 years of doing this show just how many home nudists there are out there. But they keep it to themselves. They wouldn't tell you. They wouldn't tell me. They don't tell anybody. They're just nude in their home, whether they're alone or family or married or, whatever. But they're always nude in the home, but never around other people. To you, what is the major advantage of being a social naturist where, you're out there, you're clothes-free with other clothes-free people, enjoying the day or enjoying the activity? What's the major difference in your mind, or at least for you?
To me, it's more about openly making friends, making honest friendships, real connections with people. When you're in a social setting and you take clothes away, there's really nothing to hide. People are a lot more open with you. I've probably discussed more personal things with nudist friends than I have textile friends, just because that openness is almost inherent.
Yeah,
it just comes with the territory. I feel like I've built stronger friendships with people because of that than I could have in a traditional textile environment. It's been an experience. I never really quite understood the social aspect until I actually did it. I didn't realize, how life-changing it was going to be for me. It really does kind of removes all those barriers. I mean, we have nudist friends that my wife and I consider to be family at this point.
Sure.
And I don't think we ever would have, and sometimes you meet people like, I have a very good friend that's an engineer. And, in a normal social setting, we probably would have never even spoke or anything, But, people that we've known for 15 plus years now that I consider family, I would do anything for them. And I just don't think we ever would have grown that friendship like we did if it wasn't for social nudism.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put that. And I've heard other people say it. I've experienced it the same way. And I'm sure you've heard from the show, I was allowed to be clothes free my whole life as a kid. But my family was not necessarily into social naturism. They did it because other families in the neighborhood were naturists as well. But we never went to a club. I don't think we even ever went to a nude beach. But, there wasn't anyone near us, actually, and no nude beaches. And the closest resort was probably an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So we didn't do that whole deal. But we were nude around the home, especially myself, all of the time. My dad, most of the time. My mom and sister, hardly ever. But when people came over, I was allowed to remain clothes free. And so it became normal and natural. And I noticed the same thing you did. Even as a kid, I was better, tighter friends with kids on the street who were also clothes free when we got together to play or, go swimming, whatever. And there is something to that. I don't think anybody's totally figured it out, the psychological aspect. And maybe you hit on it when you said all of the barriers are removed. It's just you and it's just him or her, and you're having a conversation. You're not hiding behind anything anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was not, I don't want to say I was a judgmental person, but, I always thought of life as, almost like people are competing against each other. I want to be more successful than you at my job, or I want to get, you know, uh, the nicer car than this person has. And then once I joined into the social nudism aspect of it, it wasn't like that anymore. It wasn't a competition. It was more of how do we lift each other up? How do we succeed together? How does this person make me better? How can I make that person better?
Mm-hmm.
And it really changed my entire view of my life, to be honest.
Yeah.
It wasn't about, who has the nicer things, who has it really just came down to individual personalities. Everyone has different value systems and what they care about. It opened doors that I don't think would have ever been opened if I hadn't explored social nudism.
Yeah. I remember the first time I went to a nudist naturist resort, I was in my 30s. I mean, it took me that long because I just didn't have access to it. Everything was too far away. And I went, and part of it was to experience it, but part of it too was to observe, okay, what really goes on here? Because I had been told, like everybody else, oh, baby, it's wild party time and sex, drugs, and alcohol and rock and roll. But other people said, no, that's not the case at all. So I thought, well, okay, when I go, I'll observe this. And I saw, as the day progressed, more and more people showed up. I got there early, so I kind of check out the crowd. As people showed up, I would observe people, maybe 2 people, maybe 5, maybe 10, standing together, fully nude, talking as though they were in an office setting or at the park. And I thought, okay, now this is what it's all about. I mean, it hit me even in my 30s when I learned it. There's no sneaking around, there's no hiding, there's no nonsense. It's just here we are. It's just us. We are clothes free and talking. And you talk about one of those monumental moments in your life as, okay, this is it for life. The social naturism aspect. I was always nude before that anyway, just not openly out there all of the time. It sounds like you discovered maybe basically the same thing, right? Your first visit on?
It was almost exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably late 20s before I really discovered. I always in my head, I never considered myself a naturist or a nudist or anything. In my head, I always thought the word nudist was like some group of hippies somewhere
Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
like to, um, I didn't really think of it as what it really is.
Yeah.
And even when I did take my first trip to sun shower. That's kind of what I was expecting in my head. It's like, oh, we're going to pull in. It's going to be a really teeny tiny little campground with a few tents and just a bunch of hippies running around naked. That's really what I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
And then I got there, and all of a sudden, there's 100 people out there, and nobody has a care in the world. There's just about as diverse of a crowd as you could think of. And it just opened my mind quite a bit. To be honest, when I was, just a home nudist, I thought I was the only one that did that. I would get home from work, I would take all my clothes off, and then just proceed throughout my evening like a normal person, just in the nude.
Right.
And when I discovered that, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person on planet Earth that does this, it was kind of eye-opening.
It's almost impossible to quantify it, at least percentage-wise, how many people are home nudists, because they don't tell us. They're a home nudist for a reason. They don't want people to know, or they think something is wrong with it. Like, man, kind of like you said, you walk in, the clothes come off. Some people do that, think, okay, this is wrong, but it feels good, I'm going to do it. And who cares, because nobody will see me. But more and more, they're coming out of the woodwork like, yes, that's me to the T. That's what I do. We live nude in our home, but nobody outside of our home knows about this. Now, in your role as the founder and president of Indiana Naturists, we're talking to Chris Brown this morning from Indiana Naturists. Do people outside of your group know that you are a nudist naturist? People at work, people in the community?
Somewhat. I don't openly discuss it with people if I don't have a decent relationship, I guess. Once I get to know someone at work well enough, I'll tell them. But I had a customer service job long time ago, but I came out, it's like, hey, this is stuff that I enjoy. And I got ridiculed a little bit at work for it. Okay. There's a group of people that they didn't understand what it was. So in their mind, I was some kind of sexual deviant and, a swinger or whatever they thought in their minds. And I just couldn't get their minds back on track of what it actually was. So for a while, I just kind of kept it to myself. I didn't really publicly, talk about it other than with our group and our other nudist friends. Now I'm a little bit more guarded, but I am more open with it. Most of my friends know. Our family knows. And then too, also, I feel like I have to kind of pre-qualify people, because there are people that I get a lot with people, oh, I want to join. I like to look at boobs or whatever. No, that's not what we are.
Right. Yeah. Now, we don't need those folks at all. And
no.
Most people who join for those reasons, almost immediately, there are other reasons why they stay, because they realize that's not the deal either, at least for the most part, I've found. How about you?
That is true. Yeah. I feel like, the way I kind of came about being a nudist isn't really the story for most people. I think there probably are people that start to get interested because of, maybe the voyeuristic type of attitude that kind of brings them there. But then, as they learn, they kind of get out of that. But I don't really judge people for that, but it's just not how things happen for me.
Right.
And I think most of the time because, with our club is more for, the type of people that are curious about naturism more than the seasoned veterans that, we do get some of those too. People that, have been a member of a landed club for a number of years and, hey, I'm just tired of sitting at home all winter long waiting for the sun to come back out. Yeah. Here's this club that has these events during the winter time. So we do get those, but a lot of the people that we have are people that have either emailed me or texted me, had questions about, never tried it before. So I think that's really what where we're coming from as Indiana Naturists is, we have that bridge to kind of learn more about it and experience it without having some kind of huge investment up front, like even like at Sunny Haven, it's fairly inexpensive to join, but it's still, $1,500 a year to have a member in a campsite and all that. Yeah. So it makes more sense for a lot of people that are kind of in that I want to explore this a little bit more, but I don't necessarily want to put a bunch of money into it, try it one weekend and decide that it's not my thing.
Right.
And then you're out all of that money. We do get a lot of people from different backgrounds and different ways of thinking that come through the door. And, I do my best to, most people that join, I've had multiple conversations with before they ever even apply for a membership. I feel like that's kind of my duty and help serve the naturist community, is to kind of help answer those questions and get them over that hump. I can most of the time get that mindset changed before they're ever even approved to join our club.
Yeah, I saw somewhere on your website, I don't have this page in front of me, but you only accept people of outstanding or terrific moral character, I think was the term you used. How is that determined, or is that just something you can kind of sort of feel as you talk to the person? Like you said, a number of times, you have many communications before you let them join. Is that something you determine based on talking to them or checking them out, or overall, how is that vetted?
Yeah, basically just by talking to them. We do background checks on everybody once they apply, and we don't necessarily look at everything, but if you have, a violent crime or, a sexual type crime, something like that, then obviously we don't let you in.
Right.
If you have an indecent exposure charge, we overlook that, but
Yeah.
so we, on the back end, we do background checks, but most of the time it's just a feel that I get over conversations.
Yeah.
You can sort of tell, especially after 15 years, you can just tell the ones that are genuine and the ones that are, in it for ulterior motives, I guess.
Yeah. And I suppose if they do join and immediately they start hitting on, every babe in the group, you're thinking, okay, I guess I made a mistake here. You're going to have to go. You reserve that right, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We can remove anybody at any time for any reason. We've been pretty lucky. There's been a few that we have had to remove, but for the most part, I think our system is working. We do allow singles, and couples. And I will say that, I started as a single nudist. Okay. And, there's a lot of places that I couldn't go as a single nudist. So you just can't get in the door.
Right.
But I will say that sometimes married couples are the ones you need to look. It's not necessarily just because it's a single man, I need to pay extra attention to this person. Okay. Just to make sure. Sometimes it's the married man that is the one that causes the problem. So it's different for everybody, but I think for the most part, we've been pretty lucky.
Yeah. There's this one home naturist group. I won't identify them by name because I don't have permission to tell this story. But the leader is kind of sort of like you. He's the founder, he's the owner, and he calls all the shots. But his second in command is a retired police officer. And the reason, first of all, they're friends, but he also chose him to constantly check everybody out. Let's vet them first. You have buddies who are still police. What do they know? And then at each event, he's scouring the crowd for any unusual behavior. And as a result, it's kept it basically clean as a whistle because you have somebody who's trained to look at people for this kind of stuff, who's looking at people for this kind of stuff at every gathering.
Yeah.
And so, as everybody knows, it only takes one fool to mess everything up. You get somebody in there acting like a fool, and maybe 5 or 10 people say, "Hey, Chris, I'm out. I got to leave because this guy's a fool." So you want to get the fool out if you identify one. But fortunately, that's really not happened too much, right?
No, not really. And all of our members really do that. All of our members keep an eye on, especially if somebody is new. One thing that's really cool about our club is that, a lot of the people are really helpful to new people. If you're just new to nudism, you're nervous. Our club is, we have members that have kind of learned how to deal with that and help overcome that uncomfortable first time. But they're also there kind of looking at, hey, this person's spending a lot of time looking in this direction, or and they'll come up to me and tell me, and we usually get that taken care of right away. But like I said, we've been really lucky. We've only had a few instances of troublemakers. One thing that I have noticed is, say you get a brand new couple, never done anything social before. They come to an event, the nerves are a little high strung, and so they start maybe drinking a little too much or something like that. I've seen that. It's like, okay, we're going to set you aside. You're not necessarily being inappropriate, but maybe we need to switch to bottled water for a while.
Coffee might help, that
I
kind of stuff.
understand
Yeah.
it's calming the nerves, but
Yeah.
I
also saw on your website, people join, they show up, and they don't have to get nude immediately as soon as they walk in the door, right? They can wait till they're just feeling a little more at ease and comfortable.
That is true. We are a little bit sexist in that way, a little bit, I guess, because that's more, for women than it is for men. It's just kind of how it is. If a brand new guy shows up and he's there for 2 hours and never gets undressed, that starts to make people uncomfortable.
Sure.
If like a husband and wife all recently joined, and she stayed nude for probably the first 30, 40 minutes maybe. And then all of a sudden she started to be kind of more uncomfortable than everybody else because she's looking around like I'm the only one with clothes on. So then it kind of helps that along a little bit as far as taking the plunge, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's always kind of been the fun thing about it too, is because I'm just going to come and I'm going to wear a sarong or whatever. Nobody ever judges anybody if that's how they want to do it.
Right.
We've all been there. We understand it. It's new. And I think some people, they just want to get to know people a little bit better before they take the plunge. So yeah, we've always been accepting of that. But my wife always says, it's like, we are kind of sexist in that way. Eventually, if you're a guy, we're going to pull you aside and be like, you need to get undressed.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Because why are you here? We thought you were here because you're a naturist nudist. You're joining a naturist nudist club and you have clothes on, and we're 2 or 3 hours in. So, it just makes people feel uncomfortable. And maybe he really is going through a thing like, I don't know. Maybe I'll wait another hour, see what happens. But at some point, the tide turns a little like, okay, if you can't do it, maybe you should leave and come back the next time. Is that a suggestion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And one thing that we do too is, if we ever get anybody that's apprehensive like that, me and my wife will usually host something at our house, small. We just actually did that yesterday for a couple. Just come over and get comfortable with it just in a smaller setting. Might just be, me and my wife and them, or, we might invite another couple along, just to like a smaller venue where you can get comfortable in your own time and kind of see where that leads. Before, I'm a little hesitant, especially because we go to other people's homes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to invite someone into another member's home if I'm not totally comfortable with that person. So in that case, it's good to kind of get a feel for it, in a personal setting before we actually, just let them loose. Like, okay, now you're part of the club. Let's drive to Indianapolis and hang out at some stranger's home for 3 or 4 hours.
Right. Yeah, there is a little more responsibility there. If you lead some knucklehead into somebody else's home, they're going to be ticked at you. It's like,
Exactly,
what did you bring this guy over here for?
Yeah.
I understand. We're talking to Chris Brown this morning. He's the founder and president of Indiana Naturists. And Chris, before we continue on, how can our listeners get a hold of you or find your group?
Our website is indianaturist.com. That's plural, naturists. Mm-hmm. You can also email me. It's just Chris, CHRIS, at indianaturist.com. If you want to phone me or text me, my phone number is on the website as well. Pretty easy to find how to contact me. I talk with, people just about every day that are curious.
Wow.
So my phone number rings all the time. Sometimes it's just random 1 or 2 questions. Sometimes it's an hour, but I'm always open to help any way I can. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah. So indiananaturists.com. And now you've mentioned your wife a couple of times, and we talked a little before we started recording. She helps you run the ship here. Was she a naturist before the two of you met, or how did that all evolve for her?
No, she wasn't. She had no idea what it was. So we met on a website.
Okay.
A diehard Green Bay Packers fan. So
well, we're going to have to end the interview right there, Chris, because that's the antithesis of what we're Detroit Lions fans here. So,
okay.
Big rivalry, and Green Bay usually wins. But move on. I'm just kidding.
Not lately.
Yeah, that's true too. That is true.
But so anyway, I was on a dating website, and my handle on the website was Packers Naturist.
Okay.
So she contacts me, and she had no idea what a naturist was. She's like, "Oh, he just likes hiking."
Hello, surprise.
Yeah. So we went. I want to say it was probably maybe our third date, and we really hit it off instantly. We connected like no one I've ever been with before. Yeah. And funny story, we were getting ready for a group trip to Sunny Haven. And I just felt like, hey, I've really got a connection with this person. I feel like I'm going to be going behind her back if I go to this club and she doesn't know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Especially if she finds out later and doesn't quite understand what's happening.
Right.
So very nervously, I invited her over to my apartment for dinner, and I had notes written out. I had every single Anna brochure ever printed available. I had all kinds of, past bulletins. I had everything, all my resources I need to, and I wasn't necessarily pressuring her to join along. I just wanted her to understand it.
Right.
And I'm not the most tactical person in the world. So I asked her, I was like, so how open are you to new experiences? And you could see like kind of the blood come out of her face.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, what is this crazy person going to tell me now?
You got it.
Then I explained, well, I'm a naturist. This is what we do. And kind of explained it to her. And well, by the way, I run this club, going on a trip to Sunny Haven for the weekend. And unbelievably, I think in her head, she was just more of like, well, I really like this person and I want to get to know him more. So I guess the only way to do that is to join in and go to Sunny Haven with him. So that's what she did. I was actually very impressed. We practiced a couple times, just doing things around the house nude before the weekend came up. And she seemed pretty comfortable. Went to Sunny Haven. Didn't even have my car unloaded yet. And she was already completely nude, talking to people, talking to some of our neighbors. And just jumped right in.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah. And, and pretty much ever since she's been with me all the way. She loves it. And it's been a blessing because I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go.
Right.
And I was very nervous, but
if you've listened to the shows, all of them, that is a theme that keeps popping up over and over. I can't even count how many emails we've received from listeners, usually the man. They're now married 20 years, 30 years. He's a nudist, naturist. Never told his wife. Didn't tell them while they were dating. He's kept it hidden their whole marriage. He gets nude when she's gone. He gets nude when he's out of town at a hotel. Otherwise, it's a secret. And we've heard psychologists before, based on the study of human nature, when you hit your third date, if there is a third date, now things are starting to get a little bit serious. Because, the first date, bells and whistles, 4th of July, whatever. That can happen with pretty much everybody. So a second date usually comes around unless it's a total disaster. Well, that's when you get to know, okay, I think it's worth pursuing. The third date is usually, I shouldn't say usually, but what the experts recommend, and I'm not one of them. The third date is when you might have your first kiss, or maybe even a little more than your first kiss, because now you're starting to feel comfortable. You're getting to know each other pretty well. And in between these dates, you probably talked on the phone a zillion times or now texting and email. So there's a lot of communication over these, I won't say 3 weeks, but now third date, whatever, it could take 6 weeks to get your third date, depending on your schedules. And so when you get to that third date, it sounds like you did this. I don't know if it was a third date, but it was early on. Tell the person everything. What are you into? What do you like? What do you dislike? And if she gets up and says, you're a psycho loser, please don't ever call me again. Well, it's better to know that after the third date as opposed to 30 years of marriage when you reveal and she says, what? for 30 plus years, you've been a naturist. You never told me? That's sick. I'm leaving. And we've had that happen with a lot of our listeners. And so they've asked for advice on that. And we are not clinical psychologists. We are not trained to give the advice that we give other than through common sense and life experiences. And I'm guessing you recommend that too. It certainly worked for you. Conversely now, this is obviously a hypothetical question. Let's say you never told her. You never told her about your naturist life, and things begin to work out really well. You get married. And then at some point, I don't know how long you've been married, but after a number of years, she finds out accidentally that, what? My husband gets naked on the weekends when he says he's playing golf? How do you think that would have played out? Not necessarily personalizing it, although you can, but just in any marriage. Probably not too well, right?
No, that wouldn't go over very well at all.
Yeah.
And that was part of it too, because I didn't want to do anything behind her back, even though it was early on in our relationship.
Right.
It's just about being completely honest. And, I was at the point where probably shouldn't let her know this, but, I was really thinking by the third date, like, this is the one, like, I've got to figure out a way to keep her around.
The very terrific Chris from Indiana Naturists, a non-landed nudist club. And on next week's show, which will be episode 106, part 2 of my interview with Chris from Indiana Naturists. And before we disappear and vanish for another week or so, let's bring back in our naturism correspondent, Lisa Monroe. Welcome back, Lisa.
Well, I'm glad to be back. It's been so long.
That's right. I remember, do you remember Steve Allen? He hosted The Tonight Show way before we were born, but then wrote tunes and acted and sang and everything else. Remember him? Comedian?
I remember him well. In fact, I got to see him live once.
Yeah, so did I, yeah. Well, he was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson a lot. And a lot of times, Carson would introduce, hello, Steve, nice to have you here. And he'd say, well, it's nice to be had. So,
I remember that.
So that's how you feel right now, right? It's nice to be had.
It certainly is. Yeah. I'm just tickled pink.
All right. We'll have part 2 next week with Chris from Indiana Naturists. But this guy and his wife are going full bore. He developed this nudist club, obviously, before he met her, before she was married. But now she helps run it. And they're just doing a bang-up job up there. And they invited us up there for the weekend or for the week when they celebrate this summer. Unfortunately, we can't make it because of travel plans. But what a decent guy and what a great concept they have going, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I think this is a very good way for people to realize that you don't have to be at a nudist resort. You don't have to be a member of a resort. You can get together with friends and then bring more people in and have this non-landed community that they have. And that's a really good thing, because there is fun in social naturism, and it's fun in being with like-minded people who, from various walks of life, but still love what they're doing. So it's a really great way to get past that lonely part of being a home naturist. And so good luck to them.
Oh yeah. And they're doing really well. And
they really are.
They're affiliated with the American Association for Nude Recreation. They come under their auspices, however that works with a non-landed club. But so they're not just out there on their own. They do have rules and regulations they follow in accordance with ANR. So hats off to Chris. And we'll do part 2 with Chris next week. We have some amazing guests coming up as well. Beyond Chris, who's amazing, we have others coming up for the rest of the year. And I think our listeners will be very pleased and very happy. And we'll intersperse Frank and Lisa shows as well. So even though it's basically the halfway point of the year, June ends the halfway point in 2 days, we still have a whole half a year ready to go, filled with activities and terrific guests, don't we?
We sure do. And it's, I think it is going to be an exciting few months for everyone, because there are some really good people coming up.
Yeah, very much so. Well, with that, Lisa Monroe, let's head for the hills. And until we get together again next week, go out there and have a great clothes-free week. We'll see you next time.
I certainly will, and you too, and everyone the same.
All right. Well, you've been listening to Naked Nudists and Naturists, episode 105 today. We give you a brand new show every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Continue to join us. Check us out on our website, nakednudistandnaturist.com, Spotify, Google, Amazon/Audible, Apple Podcasts, and also on Twitter. You can write us anywhere, anytime, any place. And we thank you for being with us today. Plan to join us for every single one of our shows here and have your clothes off when you're listening. We have our clothes off when we're broadcasting, enjoying the naturist life.
We celebrate clothes-free living for all. Remember to enjoy being naked and join us again for Naked Nudists and Naturists.
We drop a brand new show every Saturday morning, so come back and join us. Have your clothes off when you do for Naked Nudists and Naturists. Have a great clothes-free day.